April 6th, 2022. There was a headline. Again, I don't follow all the headlines. I watch it. I make note of it if it seems to coincide with something else that I've discovered along the way. So in sequence today there was a thing about the homeless that the current Mayor Adams in New York City is having a problem with. I mean, he's tackling it, of course, but it looks like it's a issue that he's been steadily addressing along with the MTA crimes. I haven't mentioned, but I did notice that I don't know what his title is inside of the MTA, and he just had a replacement come down from Boston, or I don't know if it's like a side power chain, like again, something went on, but they did show his face, and you could see on camera. And then at another time, he turned his face so you couldn't see the black and blue. It looked like he got punched. And again, I don't know anything, but I just want to make light of it that I noticed on one of the cameras he showed up for, for domestic violence. I don't know. But it looked like he got roughed up by what? I don't know. And then a few days later, he came out, and there was now somebody taking his place. It's just something between, I made mention before, I don't know, the news makes these highlights. I don't know how to support the right team, let's just say, in the right operations, in the right order, for the right purpose. At this point, this particular story that I'm going to lead with, and then I'm going to go back to the homeless thing and some of the locals, what they're saying, because it's the only form of journalism I have access to in a corroborated effort of something is seriously wrong. I just don't know exactly where and who needs what or how to get involved, like the way that somebody might prefer me to be. So there was a no-knock raid. Somebody inside had a gun. The police did what they did. And so now the families in New York City have gotten really loud and proud. And every time not every time, but it looks and it sounds a lot like, to me, I mean, I've been documenting just how much pride and just how much splendor and glory and success, like Will Smith, Chris Rock, I mean, like actors that are so important. They win awards, same thing with their sports, some sports people. And then you have in real world, some one person gets acknowledged on TV, and then it becomes like all of the good things that were accomplished at some other level is just washed away. And the mother's comment is so interesting. But I know at another level, civil disobedience, I mean, at some point there is a no domicile. I mean, like, that's what they put up a sign. It's a new word for me, or non-domiciled, with the steady influx of undocumented and then the identity theft documentation that perhaps exists somewhere in the city. I mean, again, rumor has it, but what do I know in actuality? Like, how do you get somebody to actually get on that? And I don't know, like, how they organize, but again, that's what professionals do. I'm just looking for the devil's work at hand for that the state allowed in highlight to maybe help the good guys maybe get better. I don't know, like what they do with whatever. But we are in a Mount Rushmore territory, so again, I have to look out for my son's future and my future. So this is how the story sounds, because there's some national association inside of New York City. It looks like they're holding this, like, whatever, with a big banner behind them, but it's not North America Nation or like Mount Rushmore Children Nation. It's a different nation. And it's been a multi-decade increasing power problem within the interior design of North America. In places. I mean, in some places it's whatever, but in others it's a real serious, when you look at it to try to analyze it, it looks like a increasing sized problem that I don't, again, know how to hand raise for professionals. I mean, and if you're hand raised, do they want help? Like, how do you keep yourself safe inside of this? Like, it's just a concern. In sheer numbers alone.
It was even his apartment. Locke, a licensed gun owner, was sleeping under a blanket on a couch. Body camera video shows a gun in his hand as he begins to sit up when police officers approached him. An officer can be seen shooting him less than 10 seconds after entering the room. Locke's mother speaking in Midtown today at the National Action Network.
Now, I don't understand why there's even a National Action Network. Because the person had a gun in his hands, police were coming in, and his first reaction was to grab a gun and point it back at the police. I mean, that doesn't seem like, that seems like the movie theater version of the correct reaction, but it doesn't seem, if you're in a city and you're not participating in any kind of crime, it just doesn't seem like it would be a reaction that, I don't know.
I am angry. I am disgusted with Minneapolis, Minnesota. This country is still a disappointment in 2022.
Now, so she's in Midtown Manhattan. I don't want to get in trouble for allowing this to go on in my city or my state. That's number one. Wouldn't want to upset any of the managing partners in Minnesota or Minneapolis or wherever she's upset with. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, because like there is some form of interstate that has to, I mean, like they're back-to-back puzzle pieces, so that's one that I'm concerned about. But again, how do you block these things from gaining some kind of teeth and momentum? Are these like steam valve releases, or, I mean, is this just gaining more steam and momentum to take bigger action in a more dangerous way and fashion in some other format. That's what my main concern is, because I don't have these answers and I don't have anybody to ask. But they always make it sound like it's, and she goes on. So she's upset about the country. And then she gets mad about, like, she says that they've won rights, they've this, they've that, but yet nobody treats them fairly. That's not necessarily true. I've seen a whole lot of success, and I've also documented and have been documenting all of their prideful, gracious, like wonderful successes along the last 2 years that I've been what feels like under house arrest. But I mean, again, I don't have anything formal, but it just feels like I can't get out in some POA MIA that I don't know who created it. And I got my own thing going on. But I see things like this, and this just is like a red flare for me. Like, I'm so frightened of what comes on the curtail or the back end of this. It says no justice, no peace. They founded in 1991, whatever this is. National Action Network. This guy's name's Crump. Benjamin Crump, to be exact. And they're an outfit that's running out of New York. Again, they have some association, I heard, they said, with Al Sharpton, Reverend Al Sharpton. Again, I don't know that R-E-V lettering in Reverend. I don't know how that ministry is organized, but it's a concern at times. And I don't know who this woman is or what her name is. They said the son's name was, oh, here, Karen Wells. So now, let's go back.
We have rights. We vote. We carry legal firearms, and y'all still think that we don't matter.
I did not get that line of logic. I hear that verse like a script that they wrote for themselves in repetitious manner in some congregation or mass. They keep saying it, and then they say it so many times they believe it. I've seen other humans do it in other situations. It's not just this one woman. But that incorrect spoken verse that's repeated and in mass grouping repeated just leaves and leads with the wrong sentiment. And then leads to all sorts of catastrophes and breakdowns in socioeconomics and pathways to success and funding and all sorts of stuff. But it's concerning. And her message was clear. She spoke on her own behalf. Now I'm going to rewind this and go to, and that's all because they didn't file charges. I've seen so many police officers, they come at the police officers for doing their jobs. It's unacceptable. This is like organized crime's gone run amok, and you need organization and the people who are participating in it to be held in some order and civil obedience. And then you have these activist groups trying to purposely target the law enforcement agents that are trying to carry out what the court system, it's like, I don't know, again, I'm looking at it from isolamia, from a different distal, trying to also, the founding fathers and the origins, there's a main management at that scale that I don't have access to at the moment, via a regular phone call. And then there's the local city portion of it, and then the integration of how is New York City gonna look, and how are the good men and women of service that do interstate work, whatever that's called, I don't know, but like how is that going to work if we come off as a hard state to work with or for, and we need help in cleaning up, and I don't need these loud and proud and the wrong story congregating and giving our state a bad reputation and giving a acclimate or like an environment that's more pro-crime, because then that starts to happen when you have interstate doesn't want to work with you and help you clean up your mess. Then you're really in a bad spot, because crime's just going to take over. And that's not an option as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so this is the beginning story. This is a different level of homelessness and no domicile.
Thank you very much. We are following some breaking news.
It's like in the psychology of New York City, being that it's a roped off, let's call it a VIP or an MVP area at the moment, just for all the drug lords, warlords, and cartels that created this seedy structure that's currently in some format of breakdown and build up, because they're always in competition with whatever and dangerous things to speak on. And so it's like they're in some stage of either breakdown or build up, and then you've got these national activists here in the city that aren't even this nation. They're a different nation completely, and they might even be different multiple nation. That's just one representative. So it's like not all of, I mean, like there's different labels. I mean, some people affiliate as one, some affiliate as another, some affiliate shop. They're like, wait, what's on the menu? It might, just for today, call myself. I mean, like, I don't know. It's possible. So, there's that. So there's some level where they're being fed, there's some kind of economy, there's some kind of job market, there's some kind of whatever that's keeping their locomotion moving, and where they're not complaining about housing. And then there's another subset of psychology within the city that it looks like, where they've moved into the territory from where, I don't know. And they've either been thrown out, they haven't been allowed into the labor market, or they've just, I mean, they're now in tents congregating somehow in New York City. And this is what they're asking now for homeless shelters and things. And I don't know if this has anything to do with like the Tijuana, Mexico thing, or the war in Ukraine thing, or things that they don't even speak about on my silver lining illumination machine.
News right now. Tensions are growing among homeless people and advocates in the city of New York over clearing out an encampment on the Lower East Side. The homeless are refusing to move, and for several hours today, they've protested, saying they want something more permanent to be done.
So, at one point, some of these people in New York were refugees. At that point, they were so thankful, so gracious. They were so wonderful to work with, and they were so destitute that everything and anything sounded wonderful. And then at some point, that tide turned and love wore off, and then it becomes fighting internally. And at some stage in this process, it becomes refusing to move the way that management needs even within the city system.
As you can see, several police officers are now there monitoring the situation. Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles is live on the east side where that situation is still ongoing. Darla.
This has been a stalemate for the last 4 hours between the homeless who are living on the street, advocates who have been blocking the sanitation crews from getting through, and also the city of New York. I want to show you a live look of what's going on right now. You can see a number of NYPD officers here on East 9th Street. There is an individual. He is wearing a Harlem baseball cap. We believe this is one of the men who had been living here on East 9th Street. Now, about an hour ago, the city started to ramp up its efforts to calm the area, clear out the scene, because those protesters were not leaving. They were blocking the sanitation crews from removing the encampments. And so now what you see is someone who is physically being removed. This is actually the first arrest since the city started clearing out these homeless encampments last month.
I mean, there is a difference between migrants that has a grant, a labor contract, a purpose to be there, and a seat to fill. And then there is a difference between a refugee who refuses to cooperate somewhere. Someone got mad, and then they asked for what sounds like asylum now is the way that they're going. But again, I have no idea about this process. Nobody's ever explained this. I mean, like, I'm one of the Mount Rushmore ancestor kids here. There's supposed to be some place for me in all of this whatever. I just don't know where. I mean, I can see the world stage. I can see the local stage. Like, if it's a stage of a microscope, I see. I turn the light on, which is this. I can see through the one ocular eyepiece what's going on. I just don't know how to and what it's called. Because, again, I don't want to hold a scalpel and I don't want to hold a gun. So where do I fit and still stay safe?
And again, that individual is being taken into custody right now, but this is just a culmination of a very, very tense, long day of everybody who just thinks they're helping.
We're committed to stay together until this resolves, until we have permanent housing.
At this point, nobody is moving. Not the homeless living in this encampment, not their advocates.
Go home!
And neither is the city.
This camp means a lot to me because it is not just a homeless camp. It is also a political statement that the solution to homelessness is housing, not shelters or safe havens, but housing.
The area in question is a section of East 9th Street between Avenues B and C in the East Village on a sidewalk covered by scaffolding. This is not the first time city sanitation crews have cleared out a homeless encampment here, which some people refer to as Anarchy Row.
They've started coming by about 8:30 this morning, and they warned us 2 days ago. They left us notices, came back yesterday, left us more notices.
About 24 homeless rights advocates showed up around 11 a.m., blocking access to the encampment for sanitation crews.
I think this is important to everyone personally because this just shows that the state is completely violent and reckless with how they treat people.
The initiative to dismantle 180 homeless encampments across the city started last month. And despite strong opposition, Mayor Adams says doing so is the best way to connect them with social services and housing.
Let me tell you what's cruel. Cruel is having people live in cardboard boxes and tents. Human waste.
What are you trying to do?
I'm going to wait and see. I'm going to sit here until something happens.
So right now I'm showing you the intersection of East Avenues and Avenue B. A lot of protesters who were blocking sanitation crews from getting to that homeless encampment, they actually moved back before the NYPD announced that this block was closed and that they would start making arrests. There are 5 people in custody in the van that you see leaving East 9th Street. So this is beginning to calm down, but it's very distressing because, again, homeless advocates, they want the best for the homeless. Homeless, they say, affordable housing is the key, not shelters, not safe havens. And so this is where this has ended today. This afternoon, during the crime stats, Police Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell, she mentioned that these removals are underway, but she declined to comment on this specific incident. As you can see, it's still developing, and we'll have more for you coming up tonight on Eyewitness News at 5 and 6. For now, reporting live in the East Village, Darla Miles, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
All right, Darla, keep.
Now, when I had a problem keeping a roof over my children's head, keeping a steady paycheck, and trying to find help with paying like the heat and electric and things at certain times, I went to Suffolk County DSS is what they call it, and they said that they would pay. And then all of a sudden, months later, I got a bill, which I couldn't pay because I didn't have money. So that just sits on the credit report. Not that I care. America's credit at this point is nil, for how horrific the college lie and sports arena lie and the failure of the job market, because it's only like taking on problem children and leaving some of us completely written off the agenda. I won't even, in New York City, I won't even attempt. I'd rather drive to Long Island and try to deal with that level of refugee crisis than to have to deal with the city workers, because the city workers have been here for a while and they're just, there is no people that look like me where I can find safe haven and a hand to hold. Let's just put it that way. Inside the city system, it is so few and far between. Most of the jobs, if you look at the ratios, especially at needing housing, needing these things, they're seats taken by some other crisis at some other point, or the took the city by storm. I don't know. In some power surge that never went spoken of, but is so clear when I turn on the television and I see who and how many show up in a crowd, for ratios of employment. Well, I'm having trouble. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. This is just a hyper local look at what's going on. I guess for integrated services, I'm not quite sure. I don't know how that works.